Matthew Tkachuk and Gustav Forsling will face each other in the quarterfinals, and Team USA is looking to exercise some Swedish demons.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, February 18th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. That is Jacob Winans joining me on another edition of Winans Wednesday. You can follow him on X at JakeW_8. And shout out to every day who's come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers and Olympic fix. So, Panther fans, USA fans, Swedish fans, whoever you may be cheering for, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Olympics, at least from now until Sunday. And the quarterfinals are set after another marathon of a day for the Winter Olympics, as the play-in rounds just wrapped up in Milano Cortina. A little bit of the change in the boards from the colors based on the inability to see the pucks, but hey, they got through it, and now the quarterfinal matchups are set as all the higher seeds won their games on Tuesday in Milan. And Jacob, I'm very excited to talk about just the quarterfinals, as we are going to have USA versus Sweden, Canada versus Czechia, Finland versus Switzerland, and Germany, Slovakia in this one. So let's start with the USA in this first segment. They'll be taking on Sweden, 3:10 Eastern. It'll be the wrap-up of the quarterfinals, and Gustav Forsling, Matthew Tkachuk, and also 8 other notable combinations of teams in that matchup who are going to have teammates facing off against each other. So, and here's the thing. USA, there's a reason why Canada ran up the score on France in that 11-2 matchup, which right before USA faced off against Germany in their final game, didn't really have a chance to clinch that 1 seed. And then you're looking at it here with the matchup here, how it's probably of the quarterfinal matchups, the one that's hardest to predict.
Yeah, I think we discussed Sweden last week as kind of being the best blue line in this tournament. I still feel that way, and I think a team that comes into this round playing defensively sound, if you get the goaltending and you play defensively sound, it's win or go home. So it's not like this is a 7-game series where eventually talent wins out. It's one game. All you need is a really good, solid defensive effort and a really good goaltending game, and you could pull off a huge upset. And I think Sweden is kind of my dark horse to medal here, and they're definitely my dark horse to in this round as far as a trap game. So the U.S. team's going to have to come prepared. They've struggled a little bit with slow starts. You're not going to get away with that against Sweden. That's a team that's a really fast roster. Even their blue line is incredibly mobile. The entire blue line there is fast, mobile. They can jump up into the play. They're gonna swarm you. They're not going to give you a lot of time in the offensive zone. So I think the U.S. The biggest key for the Americans is to start fast, and they've struggled to do that so far in these games. If there's one critique of their game, it's been the slow starts. So got to start on time, or else you could find yourself down against Sweden. And if you're trailing as a heavy favorite, and you end up falling behind, that pressure builds the longer that goes into a game. So it's going to be about a quick start.
Yeah, and you mentioned the blue liners for Sweden, and in their 5-1 win over Latvia. I mean, what was a very common thing? Walking the blue line and then trying to find those backdoor feeds that they were, and a lot of those bouncing pucks, whether they were off of skates or whether it was those rebound opportunities that Sweden was able to find in their win there. And USA is looking to exercise some demons, as they haven't defeated Sweden in the Olympics since 1960, one of the years that the USA did win the gold medal. In 1980, when the USA won on the Miracle on Ice, they actually tied Sweden in that same Olympics there, which, crazy enough, one of the stories that doesn't get told a lot about the Miracle on Ice is the fact that there was another game that the USA had to play after the fact, and there wasn't an actual gold medal game until 1992, because the Soviet Union in 1988 in the Winter Olympics in Calgary won their first 5 games, and then they lost their last game against Finland, and they still got the gold medal there based on the format there. And also, they did not face Sweden in 2006 when Sweden won gold in Henrik Lundqvist's first year in the NHL. So, but here we are for this matchup for USA versus Sweden, which is again, like I said, the hardest one to predict. And there was a lot of shaky decisions for the Sweden. I spoke about Phil Forsberg and his lack of minutes, and then getting upgraded minutes. Now the dark horse of the person in the doghouse, excuse me, is Jesper Bratt, who was a scratch today, and his minutes were limited in the third game of the preliminary round. And then Gustafsson, who's been shaky, was a healthy scratch here as well. So they ran the tandem of Markstrom starting in these last 2 games. Gustafsson was the backup, and then Jesper Wallstedt was the backup in this one for the Swedes. And also Rasmus Andersson, in which they had only one right-handed shot on their roster against Latvia in Erik Karlsson. So that can be a little bit of a risk if you're Sam Hallam.
Yeah, the personnel decisions have been a little bit interesting from the Swedish coaching staff, and I think Jesper Bratt is a guy who, if you give him minutes against a team like the U.S. team, I think he's going to have a chance to produce. He's a elite offensive talent, and the one thing that the U.S. struggles a little bit with, and I think is going to be their biggest weakness against Sweden, and ultimately if they win and advance against Canada, is a little bit of the lack of foot speed on the U.S. team. More of a big physical, grind you out sort of style that the U.S. brought to these games. And I think Sweden, you're not going to win playing that style. You're going to have to try to outskill them. You're going to have to try to outskate them. Jesper Bratt is one of the best skaters in hockey. And I'd be shocked if he doesn't find himself back in the lineup and getting some key minutes. But him as a healthy scratch is a little bit of a questionable decision. That really the wing talent for Sweden is all speed, it's all skill. They don't really have a lot of grit and grind on that roster. It's not really the Swedish style of play when it comes to the forward group. So it'll be interesting to see if they just fully embrace that and just try to outskill the U.S. and try to outspeed them, because the U.S. roster is not exactly built on foot speed. Rasmus Andersson also, it was it's an interesting move not having him in the lineup. He's one of my favorite right shot D in the NHL, and he was a guy that I really wanted the Panthers to take a shot at in the trade market. The couple times he's been available, but obviously not exactly a whole lot of cap to work with there. But yeah. I love his game, super mobile, really good skater. And just has a little bit of an element of physicality that doesn't really get noticed or appreciated in his game, but he's a physical guy. And he's been in Calgary up until his trade recently, and his time in Calgary, he's just kind of been overshadowed because that's a team that's been in a rebuild the past couple of years, but he's a performer in big games. Back when Calgary was contending and in the playoffs consistently, he's a guy who was he's a big game player. So be interesting to see if he earns more minutes, and Erik Karlsson, if he ends up playing more of a sheltered role defensively, where you probably don't want him matched up against the heavy forechecking of the U.S. team on too many shifts where he's going to be back there taking punishment and can get sort of baited into some of those turnovers when the pressure is on that forecheck.
Yeah, and the stats back it up for Sweden as far and I saw this on JFresh of the chances off the rush. Sweden is number 1 in the entire tournament as of right now. And really, who is leading the way mostly in those rush chances? Mika Zibanejad is one of those guys who are actually leading the way. And I thought that he's been really well as far as the transition opportunities. I know we haven't really talked about the neutral zone, about how it's shrunk in this tournament, about how guys are dumping the puck more, but the Swedes are not one of those teams who are dumping the puck. They're actually gaining the zone on their own and getting behind the D. So that's actually helping. And then they're hitting the trailer. Gustav Forsling had one nice clapper opportunity today against Latvia that I felt like it didn't show the speed of it, but I felt like it was at least 95 plus miles an hour. So they're actually getting those opportunities there as far as hitting the trailer as well. And Lucas Raymond, 8 points in the 4 games, 1 goal, 7 assists there. And I mean, guys like Adrian Kempe are getting to the net front as well. So that's actually a good advantage for Sweden. But if there's anywhere where the foot speed is for USA, it's the defense of getting back as well, not just going north, but being able to back in their own end. So maybe that's could at least get a little bit of an advantage, hopefully, for USA. But there is one roster change for USA that's going to come for their quarterfinal matchup. Once again, for the second consecutive game, it looks like Kyle Connor is going to not be a scratch once again, and it's going to be Clayton Keller that's going to be in. Brock Nelson is in a full bubble, but he's expected to play. This is one of those matchups where if there's one person that I think is going to have a big game, I think it's going to be Tage Thompson. That's the one guy I'm really looking for as far as, yeah, there's a lot of speed, but the size advantage, if you're battling near the crease, I think that's where Tage Thompson can thrive.
I agree, and he's sort of shown a little bit of a clutch gene recently, and
2 goals.
He's performed well in this tournament. Followed up a really strong World Championships where he scores the game winner in overtime to win that tournament for the U.S. And he's also leading a resurgent Sabres team that seems to be legit this year. So, Tage Thompson has taken his game to another level. This is definitely the type of environment that he can thrive in as far as play style in the Olympics. It's a little bit different game than the NHL game right now over there. And now we're down to the point where everyone's an NHLer that's really left in this tournament for the most part. But it with the double IHF rules, and then also the ice size over there, the size advantage is definitely there. You can't get away with as much physicality against those bigger players with this set of rules. And I think he has an advantage where that's concerned. And also just his shot has been on point this entire tournament. He's one of the most dangerous shooters in the NHL. He can score from anywhere. The Swedish goaltending they've got the names on that roster, but they haven't necessarily had the best seasons, haven't really backed it up in the tournament. So there's going to be some opportunity to get to these goalies early, whoever they decide to start. It looks like Markstrom. There's definitely going to be an early opportunity, and if it's going to be a shoot first, ask questions later style of play, Tage Thompson thrives in that.
No doubt, and let's see if Matthew Tkachuk can get in the heads of the Swedes.
Tkachuk versus Dahlin, they seem to love each other, right?
Yeah, for sure. So very excited about that one. But we're going to transition to segment number 2. We're going to discuss Canada versus Czechia. That's going to be the other quarterfinal matchup where 3 Panthers will be participating in it. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically enter for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking to board and thinking about which teams can make the deep run, this is the perfect time to lock in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds the extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 2 here on this Wednesday, February 18th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Here on another edition of Winans Wednesday, Armando Velez here with Jacob Winans. And Canada will be facing off against Czechia on Wednesday at 10:40, a rematch of the preliminary round, which they which Canada defeated Czechia by a final score of 5-0. And I did see something in the history books about 1998 where Czech Republic, when it was called at the time, defeated Canada by a final score of 2-1. That was the twilight years of Wayne Gretzky. That was still Dominik Hasek in his prime. Younger Jaromir Jagr there. So crazy to think the legend that we're playing in that game in 1998 there. But Czechia, a close 2-1 win over Denmark, held on for dear life. Lucas Dostal has been a little shaky in this tournament, but I still trust him to be clutch here. But I do think that Canada is still expected to win. They should still be the favorite here. And when you look at chances off the cycle, forecheck chances, that's where Canada has the biggest strength there. And Czechia, they're in the bottom 10 in both special teams categories throughout this tournament. I watched their PK today against Denmark. They're not even running a 1-2-1. I feel like it's just guys chasing plays over and over again. So it wasn't really necessarily tight, which I can understand. I could see why that percentage is where it is at 63.6% on the PK.
Yeah, it's man, it's first I just got to start with the names of some of the legends you brought up there at the top of that discussion. Man, what an age of hockey for Czechia back then. A little surprised Jagr didn't make the team this year because he seems to still be going. But wouldn't that be something? But yeah, that's an intriguing matchup. I like what the Czech team has as far as forwards, and we talked about them early in this discussion as kind of a dark horse and sort of a physical style on defense. I think they have the skill to compete. I think they have the physicality on defense to at least keep them in it. Goaltending, like you said, has been shaky. Dostal has, I think anyone playing in their first Olympics, especially a young guy like that, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. And I think he's done enough to stay in the fight, but this is about as tough as a test as you can, as you're going to see. So we'll see what he's able to do there. But yeah, I mean, the one weakness for Canada, if you want to consider it a weakness, is goaltending. And there's not really a whole lot of holes in their game. So you just gotta hope for a break in the dam as far as goaltending goes.
Yeah, and the only softie that Jordan Binnington gave up throughout this tournament was when they were up big against France for their second goal. That was really the only one that he gave up. And I'm just like, okay, you're not really going to be as locked in whenever there is a lead like that and the puck is just not on your end, so you might not be reacting as fast. But going back to Czechia, I got to give credit to them because after Denmark tied it at 1 today for their game, two goals very quickly for them by David Kemp and Cervenka, which Cervenka had a little bit of a stint in the NHL with the Calgary Flames, but the fact that they were able to at least keep it at a multi-goal lead there for a good amount of time, and then the shots on goal were 12-5 for Denmark in the final period, and they were still able to stand tall. And listen, the usual suspects are the guys who were leading the way here as well. And the fact that they're rotating so much on the power play there to get one of the first goals, it was Pasternak starting off on that same power play, and then Marty Necas on the one-timer spot there. I mean, a very underrated shot. I mean, I know there's a lot of superstars in the NHL, but that's one that we really don't talk about enough, about how he's able to just get pucks through on the man advantage.
Yeah, it's definitely a skill, and it's yeah, we talk about some of the elite shots on power plays like an Austin Matthews or an Alex Ovechkin, but that Stamkos. But sometimes it's not really the one timer. Sometimes it's the ability to get a shot through traffic, sort of that seeing eye ability, where even if he's not scoring, he's getting it through where there's a rebound in front or a tip in front. And if you're gonna compete in a game like this, when you're very, very outmatched talent wise on paper, it's definitely gonna take some lucky bounces. It's gonna take some deflections. It's gonna take some greasy ones, and it's gonna take some luck as far as the goaltending goes, and sometimes it's just throwing a puck at the net and getting it through traffic is all it takes to score a goal that keeps you in it. And then if you can stay in the fight long enough and stay within striking distance, you get late in these games, anything can happen really. So the odds are very, very much stacked against this Czechia team. I don't think anyone's questioning that, but I think they're going into it with the right mentality, the right mindset. I mean, Marty Necas had his hilarious quote, and I think they're going into it with the right attitude about this game, and it's sort of we know we're the underdogs, but we're gonna throw what we have at it and see what happens. And I don't really think you can ask for anything more than that. They have an opportunity, and we'll see what they do with it.
Yeah, like we mentioned in segment number one, these one game series, it's just winner take all, winner go home. You just never know if that's the one day that you don't have your A game, or for the other side you do. Some roster updates for Team Canada is Sam Bennett and Nathan McKinnon were held out for maintenance days. But Josh Morrissey was back after missing the last two games of the preliminary round. Back on the second pair with Colton Parayko there. And Brad Marchand's expected to play. I was talking about the same level of concern I'd have for the rest of the regular season for Brad Marchand is the same exact concern I had for this about Matthew Tkachuk last year. So it feels like it's kind of like a little same old song and dance for international competition, which I was listening to my friend Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings about the Kevin Fiala injury, and he's regardless of this, he's still for guys going to the Olympics, and I have that same opinion as well.
Agreed.
Because you still want these guys to fight for it and not be deprived. I mean, think about the hours that we're spending getting up early and watching these games, and the prime time in Milan that's on NBC. I mean, and these guys staying home. I'm still for this.
Absolutely. There's no question as far as I'm concerned. And, I used to feel differently about it. If you think way back to when Barkov went and was injured playing for Team Finland in 2014, very early in his career. And yeah, that was unfortunate, but that's a guy could get injured and have his season cut short and end the season at the same time of year in February playing a regular season game in the middle of the week. And it's not like we're talking about, hey, let's cancel the regular season because someone got hurt in the regular season. It's unfortunate what happened, but I don't think any of the players would trade the opportunity to represent their country in a tournament like this for to not go. And I think it's also just the NHL players not being there. It's not the greatest representation of the skill level and of the sport for these nations. So I think, I think NHL guys not going would be doing them a disservice. But I think also part of this that we don't talk about is the NHL players sitting out because of injury risk and things like that. It also does the players that are outside the NHL a disservice because they don't get the opportunity to see how they match up with the best of the best. And they don't get the opportunity to prove that they can play with the best players in the world. And the Panthers, I think this is a Panthers show. We can talk about some of the international talent that's on this Panthers roster that we would not have had or not have found if not for international competition. And look at Uvis Belinskis. You look at Nico Mikkola, who started his career late after a long time in
triple
in
goal candidate, by the way.
Yep. So it's played a part, and I think if you don't have best on best competition, you don't give guys who are outside the league an opportunity to showcase themselves.
I think of Petteri Lindbaum. The Panthers signed him after Finland won the Olympics. Hari Satari, former Panther, got signed by the Maple Leafs, and then the Coyotes snagged him off waivers after that, which I found funny. Your profile changes when it comes to these Olympic Games. I know Damian Clara of Italy is already drafted by the Anaheim Ducks, but he's lifted his stock a little bit for what he's done as well. So big ups to a lot of those guys for at least upping their profile throughout these Olympic Games. But we're going to transition to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss Finland versus Switzerland and then Germany versus Slovakia. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment 3 here on this Wednesday, February 18th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And Finland will be taking on Switzerland at 12:10 Eastern on Wednesday. And Switzerland, despite defeating Italy by a final score of 3-0, kept them around, didn't really put them away. But Italy didn't really get any bounces as the shots were tilted 51-20 in that final game. But as I mentioned in the last segment, Damian Clara, he is the only story coming out of Italy, if we're being honest. But for what it's worth, it's a rematch of the 2022 quarterfinal, which Finland won 5-1. And it's crazy, like we mentioned, not only are the guys who are not in the NHL getting showcased, but every single stat that the NBC broadcast has talked about has said, "Oh, this stat when NHL players are playing." It's like pretending that 2018 and 2022 didn't exist, even though they did. But it's so funny how they phrased stats throughout this entire tournament, which I find a little hysterical. But not only did they rematch, is this a rematch of 2022, but 2014 in the group stage, 2006 in the group stage as well. But even though it's Italy, Nico Hischier and Timo Meier coming up big in the game involved in multiple goals. But I just think that when you look at what Finland does as far as taking away the middle of the ice, which is their forte, we mentioned about how Sweden is built. Finland is the exact opposite about slowing things down. I mean, yeah, 3 Panthers, they play kind of the Panther way, which is very fun to see. But I just think that when you think about how Finland getting this bye, and also the fact for Switzerland, do you go back to Akira Schmid, which he didn't play in the first end of that back-to-back there for Switzerland? So I'm just thinking, I'm just wondering how the goaltending matchup is going to fare here, as the teams on bye are on a major advantage here.
Yeah, definitely. That bye was incredibly valuable, especially to a team like Finland, who dealing with a little bit of an illness issue there with Anton Lundell missing a game, and it's. I'm for Akira Schmid getting the start. I think a guy who has some actual NHL playoff experience and played pretty well, if I recall, against the New York Rangers. That's an interesting, definitely a really interesting option there in net. So I think that's a team that, again, we talked about them just with some of their offensive capability and the fact that they've got a pretty damn good power play quarterback that they have the ability to compete on the scoring side of things. It's a team that's got an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. And I mean, credit to Leo Giannoni, 4th Olympics that he's playing, and he's I'm looking up his save percentage right now, 962 at age 38 years old. What he's doing, incredible work,
Ridiculous.
So credit to him there. But I mean, Mikko Rantanen was a dog in towards the finish of that group play, and also the fact that for Miro Heiskanen is another one who could run that power play and also get pucks through from the blue line as well. But again, Roman Josi, I was talking about this in their final group stage game about him carrying the load at the very end to at least force overtime right before Czechia won it in overtime there, and that was a big important point for the seeding for Switzerland there, even though it came in a loss there. But I mean, Roman Josi can find a way to at least transition to plays on his own. So I think that was a very important end to the group stage, which could be very impactful in this. But I still believe that it's Finland who has that advantage here.
Yeah, no doubt. Finland's gonna. I think this has the potential to be a lopsided game. Finland just so defensively sound. I think as far as defensive forward depth, they've probably got the best in the tournament when it comes to forwards who are defensively responsible, able to kill penalties, able to win faceoffs, able to do the dirty work. That is the Finland hockey identity to a T. That's just what all of them seem to be good at. So for a team like Switzerland, who has a little bit of the top end scoring to compete, they have some guys at the top of the lineup who can generate offense, and they've got a really good power play quarterback in Roman Josi. It's the depth as you get past their top line, as you get down to their second line, their third line, and their fourth line. I just don't think they have the offense to stay competitive with the defensive minded forwards of the Finland group there. Finland, I really do feel bad for Finland as a hockey federation, because Four Nations last year, they come in shorthanded with all the injuries on defense. They didn't have an opportunity to play at full strength, and then you come into the Olympics this year and your defense is more or less intact, but you come in without Barkov, and it's back-to-back years for Finland not really having a chance to ice their true best roster, which at their best and healthiest, Finland is, in my opinion, a top 4 at worst hockey nation in any tournament that they play in. It's I would argue they're probably third. I give them the slight edge over Sweden. So unfortunate for them with the injury side of things, but they've put themselves in a position where they're going to compete here and have a real shot at a medal.
Yeah, and here's the thing, which I'm looking at. Whatever, and here's where the special teams conversation comes to play. Whenever your forward lines for Finland, for Switzerland, are coming over the boards, it's mostly guys who are playing in the top 6. Nico Hischier, Pia Suter, both in the top 6. But the 2 units for Finland are guys in the bottom 6. Luosterainen, Lundell, Erik Haula, Joel Armia, which Joel Armia had an slick shorthanded goal towards the end of the group stage, which that helps preserve the minutes there and spread things out whenever you're rolling 5-on-5. And although Switzerland's PK is at a 92% over group play, let's not forget group play can skew numbers a little bit as well here. So it feels like an opportunity for a clean slate for Finland here. So that's at least how I feel about it.
Yeah, and that's a good point on the minute balance when it comes to special teams. It's tough. It's really hard when you look at your top guys playing all of your penalty kill minutes. That's not an easy position to be in, because 2 minutes on the penalty kill, that's like 4 minutes on a regular shift. That's grueling. So the fact that Team Finland is able to roll out bottom 6 guys, get an effective penalty kill, and then coming out of a solid kill with momentum from that kill, and then you get to roll out your top 6, and your offensive guys are on the ice, building on that momentum. That's such an advantage to have, and it's one that Switzerland likely is just not going to have. And Finland, on the other hand, that's their bread and butter. They do the dirty work all up and down the lineup. It's the bottom 6 guys who are gonna carry the load as far as the lunch pail mentality, and then the top 6 guys can go to work. And with that said, yeah, you mentioned Armia's shorthanded goal. Another great playoff performer, by the way, there. That's another advantage they have. If you look at their penalty kill, every guy on that penalty kill is someone who is also a threat to score on the PK. You got to be precise. If you make a mistake, Etu, Lundy, those are guys who are going to take advantage on shorthanded opportunities. They're not shy about it. Armia is consistently one of the best penalty killers and shorthanded players that you're going to find, and that's something that the Panthers, or not the Panthers, the Finns, basically the Panthers are going to be able to take advantage of. 3 of those 4 guys on the PK you mentioned, Panthers there. Erik Haula, former Panther. So.
Yeah, and I could just see this as a 2-1 game for some odd reason for this one. But moving
And
on
Finland
to
lives there. Those 2-1 low scoring. That's where Finland thrives.
no doubt. All right, last game of the day that we're gonna preview: Germany versus Slovakia, and this isn't your normal 6 seed for this one. Slovakia is actually last in the entire tournament in Corsi 4 percentage at 45%, but Germany has the least amount of shot slots for, surprisingly, despite Draisaitl, Stützle carrying the load. So that means they're getting quality over quantity when it comes to their chances for. And even though they won 5-1 over France, Draisaitl, Seider, and Stützle all played 23 plus minutes. So they're still kind of ran to the ground a little bit here in their most recent matchup. So that's a little bit of a concern to me, but I still think that I wouldn't be surprised if Germany came out with a win. But also in their 5-1 win over France, at least the French storylines, the biggest ones were the fact that Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is actually retiring after this tournament, even though the next Olympics is going to be in the French Alps. He's going to be 44 by the time the next Olympics come around. So congratulations to him on his career. But also the Pierre Cronin suspension by his own federation after the fight with Tom Wilson there. So those are the only storylines for France throughout this tournament. But I'm really interested to see about whether they can get in the slot for a young 24-year-old goaltender in Halavai, who has had an outstanding tournament. Like I said, last in Corsi 4, so he's had to save Slovakia's bacon quite a lot. But it's been the Yaroslav Slavkovsky show there. Even though they didn't win, even though they won bronze in the most recent Olympics, he was the best play. He was the player of the tournament. It doesn't need to be the gold medal winner to be the MVP. So I wouldn't be surprised if he comes up big as well.
Yeah, I'm giving the slight edge to Germany here. I think Draisaitl is ultimately gonna be too much to handle in this game, and it almost feels like Slovakia has. I definitely won't call it luck. You never want to say it's luck, but they've kind of been the Cinderella story. That's sort of, it's almost like a how did we get here type of situation, and eventually the luck kind of runs out in most of these cases. I don't know if it will against Germany. I think Germany for me has the advantage. Like you said, they've had to run their top guys a lot. That's a concern because the depth is a little bit limited. And I don't have a ton of confidence in Germany's wingers. I think as far as the center depth goes, they have some good centers. I don't have a lot of confidence in their wingers to produce. But the way they looked against the U.S., they played their game early. They played a really solid, strong first period, for example. And I think if they bring that sort of style across a 60-minute game, they can definitely wear down the Slovakia team. But Slavkovsky, I don't think there's another player in the tournament that's going to leave these Olympics just with another level of confidence. I think Montreal has to be watching this tournament like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing that could have happened for his development, because he has put that entire team on his back throughout this tournament, and I think he's sort of now realizing what kind of superstar potential he has. And yeah, sometimes it happens for a player in the playoffs. Sometimes it happens in a regular season stretch where you get hot and then you kind of realize how good you are. But every great player at some point like finally starts to realize how good they are. And I feel like we're literally watching that happen for Slavkovsky in this tournament. It's like he's just now realized his potential. It's pretty crazy to watch.
Yeah, and he was the player of the tournament at 17 in the most recent one. That's nuts.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And that is actually scary to think. I mean, I know Montreal has defeated the Panthers 7 straight times, but you look at the talent that's going to go back, and Suzuki, who's in these Olympics, Caulfield, who's not in these Olympics for Team USA, and then Slavkovsky, man, they're going to be a pain in the butt, and they're not going away anytime soon. But I'm going to let's make our predictions for the quarterfinals. I'm going to go Canada, USA, Finland, and Germany, which means the semifinals will be USA versus Finland and Canada versus Germany. How about you?
I'm going with the exact same 4. I'm going with the exact same 4. Canada, Germany, US, Finland. I think, but I do think, and I will say this, I think the USA Sweden game is going to be the closest of the 4.
Yes.
I would not at all be shocked to see that game head to overtime. I think the other games, you're getting at least a 2-goal difference. USA Sweden, I think, is a 1-goal game, and I'm going to say it ends in overtime.
My heart will not be in a great place if that
Not
happens.
at all.
But hey, that's why we watch the games. That's why we allow the games to be played there. And just imagine what will come out of it if they don't win, because all the conversation has been that USA and Canada are quote unquote destined to meet in the final. It's true on the women's side, but still remains to be seen on the men's side. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on another edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Yep, you can follow me on X at JakeW_8.
And thank you so much. And when you return next week, we'll be talking Panther games again. So enjoy this while it's here, my friends. So see you next week.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.